The Gifted, the show that looked at 2017 at the specific political climate of 2017 and decided the appropriate response was, you know what Fox viewers need on a Monday night? A superhero series where government agents raid mutant safe houses with the operational logic of ICE raids, where a hate group recruits traumatized men through a radicalization pipeline that maps with uncomfortable precision onto real world extremism, and where the writer's room scripted an entire episode about mutant children being held in a detention facility in cages. Cut it for budget and then watch the actual news 3 weeks later. Disney bought Fox. The show was canceled 28 days after the merger closed. The Children in Cages episode never aired. Here's what they don't put in the press kit. Matt Nix, the creator of Burn Notice, spent years pitching this, not as a licensed cash grab, as a mythology. He described the publicity as running on empty with mutants, a show that would do what the X-Men films never had the patience for, build a ground level world where mutant persecution operated with the logic of real institutional systems. Bryan Singer, director of X-Men and X-Men 2, or X2, depending on whatever you want to call it, helmed the pilot. Stan the Man Lee, Simon Kinberg, and Laura Schuler Donna all executive produced. The show premiered October 2nd, 2017 at 4.9 million viewers. Fox ordered a second season before season 1 was done airing. And on December 14, 2017, 10 weeks after the premiere, while season 1 was still running, Disney announced it was acquiring 21st Century Fox, its film library, its television assets, its Marvel licenses, everything Matt Nix had built and everything he was planning to build. The Gifted was 10 weeks old. The clock had already started. The world of The Gifted operates on a specific premise, and the specificity is doing real work. The X-Men, the actual X-Men, have disappeared. The circumstances of their disappearance are not explained in season 1 or season 2. That mystery is the mythology engine for the entire show, designed to run for seasons, pulling viewers forward on the promise of an answer that Matt Nix was building toward, brick by brick, every episode. What remained in the X Men's absence is a world where mutants have no institutional protection, no legendary advocates, and no symbols, just an underground network of frightened people trying not to get caught. The Strucker family, Reed and Caitlin, played by Stephen Moyer, remember him from True Blood, and Amy Ackler, are the entry point. Reed is the district attorney who has built his entire career prosecuting mutants. Then his teenage children, Lauren and Andy, manifest powers at a school dance that turns into a Sentinel service response. The Struckers are suddenly on the wrong side of the system Reed spent years enforcing. The irony is clean. The show knows it, and it doesn't soften it.
Andy and Lauren are you.
The mutant underground they join is not a superhero team, it's a refugee operation. Thunderbird, John Prowlstar, is Apache. The show states directly what that carries: the weight of thousands of years of tribal history, mutant history, and an obligation to both families simultaneously, in a genre that gestures at indigenous heritage as costume and moves on. The Gifted builds that obligation into how Proudstar actually makes decisions across the full run of the series. Polaris, Lorna Dane, played by Emma Dumont, controls magnetism, and spoiler alert, she is Magneto's daughter. She is also living with bipolar disorder, not as metaphor, not as a character beat to be resolved and set aside, as a structural fact of who she is, how she functions, and what it costs her to operate inside any system not designed for her. The question that the Gifted poses for Lorna across both seasons is whether she accepts the mantle of her birthright, whether she becomes Magneto in his absence. The show is asking that question with enough genuine weight that the answer is never comfortable. And then there is the political allegory, and damn, does it commit. Matt Nix confirmed in The Hollywood Reporter in September 2018 that the comparison between Sentinel service raids and ICE raids was entirely deliberate. Direct quote: it does not take too sharp an eye to notice that there is a resemblance between Sentinel service raids and ICE raids. That was a case of definitely doing something specific to what was going on in the real world. End quote. He then described the storyline that was written, scripted, and cut, an episode set in a detention facility where mutant children were being held in cages, cut for budget, not for content, for budget. And 3 weeks later, after the cut was made, the real world news cycle contained footage of immigrant children in detention facilities. His quote again, we were like, whoa, we have to be careful about that in the future. End quote. A Fox superhero series in 2018 was writing storylines that were too close to the news to survive the production calendar. That is a remarkable sentence to have to write about a show starring a man whose power is that his hands glow. In season 2 introduces Reva Page, played by Grace Byers, as the leader of the Inner Circle, a faction of mutants building toward the creation of a mutant homeland through increasingly extreme means, aka the Brotherhood. Her original episode opens 8 years earlier, a black woman watching a human racist murder her friend in front of her. Unprovoked, without consequences, she is not a villain in the sense of wanting to cause suffering. Instead, she is a person who has drawn a conclusion from evidence, and the conclusion that coexistence requires a leverage the mutant underground refuses to build. The conflict between the underground and the inner circle is the show refusing to offer an easy resolution. Two sets of people with incompatible aspirations and no middle ground. Nick said it explicitly, on some issues, there really is no middle. That is not a franchise positioning statement. That is a worldview on network television in 2018, and damn, he keeps it 100. But also, let's keep it a buck. The Gifted was caught between three identities it never fully reconciled, and the friction between them cost it the audience it needed to survive. Identity 1, family drama. The struck parents are the audience surrogate. A comfortable suburban family suddenly outside the law discovering that the moral universe is more complicated than the one they assumed they inhabited. This is solid television, and it is also the franchise vehicle, the human entry point. Identity 2, political allegory, the ice raids, the detention facility, the purifiers, the radicalization pipeline, the show that wanted to say something specific about 2017 and 2018 and kept finding ways to say it anyway, even when the budget cut. The clearest example 3 weeks before it became a headline. Then there's Identity 3, Mythology Builder. Nix designed the Gifted to eventually answer what happened to the X-Men, the Frost Sisters, the mutant homeland, the Days of Future Past timeline threading through Blink's arc, building season by season toward a conclusion. All three shows needed different things from each episode. The family drama needed warmth and resolution. The political allegory needed unflinching specificity and discomfort. The mythology builder needed patience and runway. As viewership slid at 4.9 million at the season 1 premiere, 1.5 million by mid season 2, an average of 3.3 million across the second season versus 8.3 million total reach in the first. The show was being asked to serve all three masters simultaneously with an audience that had largely moved on. And then there was Brian Singer. Singer directed the pilot in October and November 2017. Within weeks of the Gifted's premiere, multiple sexual allegations against him were reported publicly. By December 2017, he was removed from the production of Bohemian Rhapsody. His name remained in the Gifted's executive producer credits, the association never addressed. It hung there throughout season 2 as background context. The show had no clean way to manage, and the merger did the rest. Disney's acquisition of Fox assets closed March 20th, 2019. Disney had its own X-Men plans for the MCU, a Fox-built Marvel Television produced alternate timeline X-Men show with no MCU connection, and declining linear ratings was not among them. The Gifted's second season had already ended, and its mythology was mid-sentence. Fox canceled The Gifted on April 17, 2019, 28 days after the merger closed. The season 2 finale had aired February 26, 6 weeks earlier, while the merger was still technically pending, while Fox still normally existed as a functioning entity making programming decisions. The finale is doing the real work. Reed Strucker sacrifices himself to stop Reva Page channeling his distinegation power into her, ending the inner circle plans and his own life in the same act. Polaris stands over the wreckage of a war that produced no homeland and no peace, holding the weight of Magneto's bloodline in both hands. And Blink, Clarice, played by Jamie Chung, jumps through a portal into what is unmistakably the days of the future past timeline. Mutant internment camps, a polarized humanity, the dystopian future. The entire X-Men mythology always been oriented around preventing she doesn't jump back. The show ends with its mythology mid construction, its central question unanswered, and its most politically urgent character standing in the exact future the Underground had spent 2 seasons trying to prevent. The X Men's fate, the question Matt Nix had been building towards since the pilot, remains to this day officially unresolved. There was hope it might move. Disney Plus, Hulu, Freeform. Nix was publicly optimistic through much of 2019. Both seasons were eventually made available on Disney Plus, quietly without announcement, filed under X-Men spin-offs alongside Legion and that New Mutants film. Not continued, not completed, filed. Now let's fast forward to 2021. Nix, in an interview with Sci Fi Y, expressed hope that future X Men projects under Disney could be free from the lore divide that had separated the franchise under Fox, the structural impossibility and of building mythology in one sandbox while the IP owner was preparing a different sandbox entirely. He was measured, he was diplomatic, he was being as kind as he could be. Now, here's what The Gifted is in the context of what it was actually trying to do. The show was building a mythology around the question the X Men film franchise never had the patience to ask at ground level. What does it actually look like when a community of people is systematically persecuted by the state without a superhero to resolve it? What does sustained institutional failure cost? What does it protect? What does it produce? What kind of people does it make? The answers it was developing were not clean. The purifiers were wrong, and the show knows it. And the show still gives Jace Turner a loss that is real, and the grief that is legible, and the radicalization that follows a human logic. The inner circle is extreme, and the show knows it. And the show still gives Reva Page an origin that makes her conclusions feel like evidence rather than villainy. The Underground is good, and the show knows it. And the show still lets it fail repeatedly because good intentions inside a broken system are not sufficient. The system doesn't care about intention. That is the X Men thesis, stated without a team of costume heroes standing by to absorb it. Peak gifted ambition. A media conglomerate filed the paperwork, and Disney had MCU plans, and Matt Nix was being as kind as he could be in interviews. And it wasn't even mad about it, it just had a phase 4 to plan. If you're into classic animation or forgotten TV shows, subscribe to Pulp Vision, where there's no ripping off other channels, no context forums, no AI narration, no slop, and definitely more originality. Thanks for watching as always, and stay excellent. See what I just did there?